Can you give me $100? On New Year's Day morning, my 8-year-old grandson, Ryan, suddenly visited our house. Walking through the falling snow without an umbrella, his tattered clothes were completely soaked. I want to pay the electricity bill because Mom's body is cold. Shivering from the cold, I couldn't believe the words that came out of my grandson's mouth. I hurried to my daughter's house, only to find that she was indeed cold and unresponsive. Why has this happened? After hearing the truth from my grandson, I decided to seek revenge on my son-in-law. I am Diane, a 60-year-old. I'm working part-time at a local supermarket. I lost my husband to illness last year, and since my only daughter, Anna, had married and moved out, I was living alone. Anna, my daughter, lived in the next city about a 15-minute drive away with her husband, Matt, a government employee, and their son, Ryan. Anna married at the age of 22 and had Ryan thereafter. Since she fell ill after giving birth, I used to help with childcare, sometimes staying over. Matt, my son-in-law, used to say, "I'm really grateful you're here," and trusted me, but things changed when Ryan turned 4. Matt began to smoke out my presence. When he returned from work and found me there, he would sigh and make it obvious he was displeased. Then, he would call Anna out of the hallway and start yelling loudly enough for me to hear. "Why is your mother always here? Can't you take care of your child by yourself?" "I'm sorry." "I can't relax in my own home with her around. It feels suffocating." I was shocked and hurt to see Anna getting scolded because of me. However, I also reflected that maybe I had been too intrusive due to my love for my daughter and grandson. I should keep a reasonable distance for Anna's sake. I decided to convey this to them, but then Matt handed me my belongings and said, "We no longer need your help. Please don't come to our house anymore. It feels like we're being watched and I don't like it." He rejected me clearly with a fierce expression. "I understand. I'm sorry for making you feel that way without realizing it." I took my belongings from him and headed to the entrance. As I turned around to say goodbye, Matt pushed me forcefully, saying, "Leave quickly." I stumbled and fell. Without showing any concern or helping me, he just closed the door. Later that night, Anna called me. "Mom, I'm sorry. Maybe Matt was just tired from work." "It's okay. I may have been too presumptuous without considering his feelings." "That's not true. Matt really appreciates you." "Thank you. But from now on, I'll refrain from visiting your house. Come to my place if you have any troubles." Hannah replied sadly, "Okay," and hung up. I thought, this is for the best. They would get along better. After that, Anna started visiting me with Ryan occasionally when Matt was away at work. As time passed, Ryan entered elementary school. Anna started working part-time, and our meetings became less frequent, leading to a distant relationship with my daughter's family. Still, every year during the New Year's holidays, Anna and Ryan would come to visit. Wondering what they would do this year, I decided to call Anna. But when I called, I heard an announcement saying, "This number is not in use." What? Has the number been disconnected? What happened? I was worried. But with the busy season at the supermarket, I was scheduled to work full-time until New Year's Eve and couldn't afford to visit Anna. Then, on the morning of New Year's Day, it was a very cold day with snow falling. "I am off today. I should visit Anna's place." Just then, I heard a voice calling, "Grandma!" from the entrance. Rushing to open the door, I found Ryan, his nose and cheeks red from the cold, standing there. He had walked for an hour through the snow without an umbrella, shivering with cold. I hurriedly invited Ryan inside. While drying him with a towel, I noticed his clothes were tattered and too small. Why is he wearing such clothes? What happened? As I was about to ask, Ryan spoke up. "Grandma, can you give me $100? Seeing the almost tearful state of my grandson, Ryan, I instantly understood that something unusual must have happened. "What? Why? What do you need it for?" "Mom's body is cold. I want to pay for the electricity. Please help, Grandma." Sensing the urgency, I quickly started the car engine, putting Ryan in the passenger seat and drove to Anna's house. Upon arrival, Ryan rushed into the house, shouting, "Mom, it's okay now, Grandma's here." But there was no response from Anna. I hurried inside to find my daughter collapsed on the floor. Anna, are you okay?" Despite my calls, there was no response. She was just as cold as Ryan had said. I immediately called an ambulance, and Anna was rushed to the hospital. An hour later, I was waiting in the hospital with Ryan. "What happened to Mom?" "Dad makes Mom cry." I felt crushed seeing his sad face. When asked where his father was, Ryan said, "He hasn't returned for 2 to 3 days. Left home yesterday." According to Ryan, Matt had been coming home less since Ryan started elementary school, and when I further asked Ryan about his daily life, I discovered an impossible fact. This is outrageous. Anna can't be treated like this. While I was trembling with anger, Ryan handed me something. Seeing it, I decided to go somewhere with it in hand. 3 days later, I called Matt to come over.
"What do you need? Can't we just talk over the phone?"
"It's important. I want to talk in person. Come over now." My firm tone surprised Matt, but after saying that, I hung up.
"Why did you call me here? What's this all about? I'm tired from work too, you know."
Matt, who came to my house reluctantly, fiddled with his smartphone and was visibly annoyed. "And because of you, Anna is gone." Shocked, Matt couldn't hide his dismay.
"Gone? How?"
On New Year's morning, Ryan came to tell me, saying Mom's body is cold and I want money to pay for the electricity.
"What do you mean?"
Ryan remembered what Anna said about getting warm if the electricity bill was paid, and he walked here through the snow. Matt, confused and panicked, muttered,
"No way, that can't be true."
"Why did it come to this? You have a decent job, and Anna was working part-time, right?"
"I don't know. Maybe Anna must have spent a lot of money to herself."
Infuriated by Matt's blame shifting, I was about to press further when his words stunned me.
"Well, it's fine. I don't have to see that ugly face anymore. I feel relieved."
"How can you say such a thing?" I wanted to slap him, but instead I showed him the video camera.
"What's this about?"
"Can you still blame Anna after watching this?" When the video from the camera was played, it showed numerous instances of how he had mistreated my daughter. Actually, Ryan had secretly recorded it. Ryan had acted with the sole intention of helping, saying, "I just wanted to help because Dad was bullying Mom." In the video, there were conversations between them, showing Matt not contributing to household expenses and even using Anna's part-time earnings for himself. Their conversations showed Anna pleading for a decent life for Ryan, but Matt would say,
"All the money's for my enjoyment,"
and abuse Anna. Anna was left without any money to use freely, her cell phone disconnected, and eventually unable to pay even the electricity bill. According to my grandson, Ryan, there was food in the house, which they ate little by little, but my daughter Anna gave most of her portion to Ryan.
She's an adult. She could have asked for help if she was in trouble, right? She didn't. So it couldn't have been that serious.
Matt tried to make excuses with a snort. "You were the one who threatened Anna, weren't you? You said if she asked me for help, you would harm Ryan too."
"Where's your proof? That's just your wild imagination."
Matt dismissively seemed to be completely defiant, confident that no one would testify against him. "Anna told me everything. I know it all from her."
"What? She's not even in this world anymore. You can say whatever you like, huh? Be careful or I'll sue you for defamation."
Undeterred, I took out my smartphone and showed him a video. "This video was taken this morning. Take a good look."
"What? No way. That can't be true."
He looked closely at the screen, clearly shocked. The video showed Anna connected to an IV in the hospital, sitting up and talking to the camera. Anna had revived in the ambulance and, thanks to the doctor's efforts, was now in recovery, able to sit up and speak. In the video, Anna quietly spoke about how Matt, addicted to gambling and nightclubs, had taken all the household money. This timeline matched when Matt started pushing me away from their house, explaining his change in attitude. "So, are you still going to sue me?" Matt, not answering the question, approached me aggressively.
Why did you lie about Anna being gone? She's alive, isn't she?
I stood my ground, staring back at him. I meant Anna, who was submissive and did everything you said, is no longer here. Did you misunderstand?
Well, fine. If she's alive, there's no problem.
He seemed frustrated, but tried to maintain his composure.
Is that all? I'm leaving. I'm busy.
This is far from over. I filed a complaint with the police. I had been informed by the hospital's doctors that Anna had numerous bruises, like she had been beaten. After seeing the video Ryan took revealing the abuse Anna endured from Matt, I didn't hesitate to file a complaint.
What? A police report? What am I supposed to do?
He paced around the room, visibly shaken. The reason for his panic was that Matt, a government employee, was actually an active duty police officer.
Why did you do that?
After all that's happened, it's normal to consult the police. Haven't you encountered such cases in your job?
If my boss finds out, I'm finished. Please, Diane, withdraw the complaint.
He begged and even knelt before me. It's too late. Even if I withdraw it, I've already spoken to your boss. They might decide on your punishment soon. After filing the complaint, I visited the department where Matt was assigned. The person who attended to me was his boss, who was shocked to hear about his behavior, saying,
I can't believe he would do such a thing.
However, when I showed the video, the boss took the matter seriously and said,
I will report this to the higher-ups and consider disciplinary action. Wait. If I face disciplinary action, Anna and Ryan will struggle too, won't they?
His self-centered concern was astounding. Unfortunately, what happens to you is of no concern to Anna and Ryan.
What do you mean?
Anna plans to divorce you. It's only natural. Matt was taken aback, not expecting Anna to be so resolute.
There's no need to go that far, right? I'll apologize to both of them. Please, Diane, ask Anna to reconsider the divorce.
Don't be ridiculous. It's a miracle Anna is alive. You should regret what you've done. Matt broke down in tears, realizing there was nothing he could do. After the divorce, he was ordered to pay $30,000 in compensation and $500 monthly for child support. However, due to his arrest for the various abuses he committed against Anna, and losing his job as a police officer, he had to borrow money from dubious lenders. Cut off by his own parents and with nowhere to turn, he now lives in fear debt collectors working day-to-day jobs. Anna was discharged from the hospital and moved in with me and Ryan. I am determined to support my daughter and grandson in our new life together.
Yes, I want to do it. At the wedding reception, during the cake-cutting ceremony, a woman who works with the groom stormed in. Stop it. This is our first joint task as a married couple. Faced with this unexpected turn of events, I, the bride, tried to stop her physically. Let's just have fun freely. The groom, my husband, for some reason, calmly watched what was happening. You've got to be kidding. I can't handle this. To my muttered remark, the woman barked back. The wedding dress you're wearing suits me better. I'll wear it instead. So, you want to be the bride, I see. Well then, I'll grant your wish. I took off my dress and left the venue. I won't look back. You shouldn't underestimate the dog waiting back there. You'll be the ones regretting this. My name is Courtney, 32 years old. My husband is Ryan. We're colleagues at the same company, working in different departments on the same floor. He proposed on our 1-year living together anniversary. And a week later, we held a wedding with family, friends, and work colleagues invited. It's bound to be a wonderful ceremony that will remain in our memories. Oh, I can't even sleep from the excitement, but I can't afford to. If I get a breakout from lack of sleep, I'll regret it. Taking care of my health is a given, but there's also nails, aesthetics, hair coloring. A bride's life is busy. You're enthusiastic about the preparations, but what's today's schedule? Mrs. Bride. The one asking was Ryan, my future husband. I have the beauty salon today. For hair and makeup? Yes, it's the final rehearsal. You look like a different person with makeup. What do you mean by that? I rarely see you dolled up. It's because you said that, I started wearing makeup a bit. I pursed my lips. It's true, so it can't be helped. I usually don't wear much makeup, because my skin is sensitive and breaks out from cosmetics. And also, because I go to take care of the family dogs. My family is involved in dog rescue and adoption. We take care of quite a number, so the whole family helps out. Knowing this, there's a woman who always makes mean comments whenever we meet. Ew. Don't you smell a bit like a dog? That's Jessica, my colleague from the same department as my husband. And she's invited to the wedding. Unlike me, she makes a point of showing off her femininity with full makeup and curled hair every day. I think to myself, good for her, spending all that time and money. But I can't help but respect her in a way. You're so plain. Only dogs keep you company, so it doesn't matter what you do. She looked down on me with such words. But her mean-spiritedness clearly escalated when she found out I was marrying Ryan. A promising catch. She'd say things like, "Is it true your specialty is dog food?" Or, "Dogs and men are different, you know." It's annoying, but I don't bother responding. No matter what she says, our dogs are adorable, and I'm the one marrying Ryan. There are women like her everywhere. Jessica seems to envy what others have, enjoys seeing others upset, and has a mean streak. However, I sometimes think that Ryan, my husband-to-be, could say something about it. It's not like he doesn't know I'm being mistreated. She's a colleague, and our desks are close. I can't really say anything harsh to her. But I'm being badmouthed all the time. I didn't even want to invite her to the wedding. Don't say that. She's probably just jealous of you. Maybe. I decided to not sweat the small stuff and look forward to the wedding. The night before the wedding, Ryan went out for drinks. His friends were throwing a pre-wedding party. "I hope you don't drink too much," I said as I saw him off, a bit worried because he likes his drink. I decided to spend my last night as a single woman back at my parents' house with them and our dogs. The Chihuahua, which we had entrusted with carrying the wedding rings as the ring dog, wouldn't leave my side for some reason. "He must be sad you're getting married." To which my mother joked, "That's you, not him. I'll still come to take care of the dogs as usual." No, that would be unfair to Ryan. Besides, he doesn't like it much. He has had a fear of dogs since being chased by one as a child, and isn't very comfortable around them. When I come home, he's happy to go out drinking, so it's fine. Oh, is that so? Either way, you're always welcome here. My parents' kind words touched me, but the noisy play of the dogs kept the mood from getting too somber. All right everyone, time to sleep. Who has a job at the wedding tomorrow? You can't mess up. Whether they understood or not, the dogs went back to their cages. I decided to go back to my place and get some sleep early, as I had preparations to start in the morning. Being late would be disastrous. I called Ryan because I was worried about him. "Courtney? Wah, what's up? I was worried you might drink too much." "Huh? No way. Are you okay? You sound flustered." No. Nothing's wrong? Okay, then. I'm heading back to my place. I'll head back too. Huh? No, in a bit. My friends are holding me back. Just don't overdo it. Understood. His attitude seemed off, but at least he didn't sound drunk. I told the sleeping dogs, "I'm counting on you for tomorrow," and left my parents' house. On the wedding day, the Chihuahua, dressed with a bow tie, made its entrance. Despite the cheers, it walked proudly with the basket of rings in its mouth, charming even the staff at the venue. Except for one. How pitiful. Forcing that tiny dog to do tricks is cruel, Jessica said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I lifted the Chihuahua, showing off its proud face to everyone. A wave of applause followed. If only she could have held back just for today. Despite that, I managed to refocus, exchanged rings, and the ceremony concluded successfully with our vows of eternal love. The scene moves to the wedding reception, where I am preparing to make my entrance. Keeping my dress but changing my accessories and makeup. Unlike the busy bride, the groom is just relaxing on a sofa. I thought about it and realized he's quite relaxed, holding a glass in his hand. Hey, what are you drinking? Champagne. Alcohol? You're kidding. I was astonished. We were about to make our entrance. Then, a staff member intervened, saying, "It's not uncommon. Grooms get nervous too. I have a speech at the end of the reception, so I'm drinking to loosen up." It sounded like an excuse to drink to me. Don't get carried away because you're drinking. I know. We entered the reception arm in arm, basking in the lights and applause. Jessica, as expected, couldn't resist making a comment. A professional hair and makeup does make you look a bit better. I continued walking with a smile, pretending not to hear her. She didn't seem to care even as people at her table reprimanded her. Standing up to get into photos and raising her voice intentionally to stand out. I muttered, "This is troublesome," to which Ryan, walking beside me, said, "She's like that, but she doesn't mean any harm." What? You'd understand if you worked with her. Really? All I could sense was malice. The reception proceeded on schedule. After the toast, a large cake was brought out for the cutting ceremony. As we stood in front of the cake, prompted by the staff, Jessica's shrill voice rang out. Yes, I want to do it." She stood up, waving her hands. It seemed like drunken nonsense, but it was impossible to ignore, and I frowned involuntarily. It was supposed to be the couple's first joint task. What is she even saying? Despite the staff's attempts to stop her, she came forward, laughing foolishly. "Move over." She turned serious all of a sudden and ordered me to move. "Stop joking. That's impossible." "Why not?" "It's fine. You do realize this is the cake cutting, right?" "I know, stingy." "Excuse me?" I wanted help, but my husband was just smiling foolishly beside me. "Are these two drunk?" I said, "Move. Go back to your seat. Just because you put on makeup and a dress doesn't mean you can get all high and mighty." "I'm not. I'm saying you're being a nuisance." "What?" Acting all high and mighty to me. Finally, Ryan stepped in between our nonsensical exchange, trying to calm us down. "Come on, both of you, let's get along. I don't mind doing it again." "What?" "So, Courtney and Jessica, both of you can do it." "What are you saying?" "If both of you do it, problem solved." Even if he was drunk, I couldn't believe what he was suggesting. I went from angry to just astonished. That's impossible. It's our wedding. Let's just have fun with it. Absolutely not. All right, too bad. Then, I'll do it with her. And with that, my husband and that woman took hold of the cake-cutting knife together. What? Before I could stop them, they had cut the wedding cake in half. Unbelievable. As I stood there in shock, "I'll do the next ritual too," she said, scooping up cake to put in my husband's mouth. "What are you doing?" "What do you mean?" "It's time for the first bite, right? Here, Ryan, open wide. This has gone too far." Ryan, you too. This is the worst. Why are you so mad? This is just entertainment. Exactly. Some women just can't take a joke. Sensing the tension, the staff intervened, escorting her back to her seat. The host quickly announced that was a fun act by close colleagues, calming the now unsettled venue. But my mind was in turmoil. To have my once-in-a-lifetime cake cutting stolen by that woman. I spent the rest of the reception holding back tears until the outfit change. This is too much. I returned to the dressing room to confront my husband. Why are you messing around with her? You've ruined everything. It's not something to be so upset about. How can you be so calm? Don't you realize what you've done? I think it was a pretty funny act. Of all people, her. Don't talk badly about a colleague. What? After everything I've. Just then, that woman broke free from the staff and entered the dressing room. I knew you'd be fighting. What are you doing here? You look terrible. Whose fault do you think that is? You can't continue the reception looking like that. I'll take your place. What? A couple that fights over something like this won't last anyway. Shaking with anger, I warned her, if you keep this up, I'll make you leave right now. She retorted, who's leaving? You. I'm offering to take your place. The situation was chaotic. Despite everything, my husband seemed pleased, looking at us with a vulgar gaze and saying cheerfully, "Come on, both of you, get along. This is troubling. Ryan. Be serious and get angry." Just then, the wardrobe staff arrived, presenting a light blue-colored dress for the re-entry, reminding us, it's time for your second entrance, please get ready. That's right, we were in the middle of the reception. You can't do a dress change with that face. Enough. We're running out of time. Ignoring my words, she stared intently at the dress and said something outrageous. This dress would look better on me, don't you think? What? Ryan, what do you think? Well, I think it would suit you. See, I told you. I'll wear it. I reached my limit, something snapped inside my head. I took a deep breath and said to them, "Then, please go ahead." What? I'm giving up the bride's role to her. What? Their faces froze, and their eyes widened in shock at my unexpected words. Just one request. To avoid confusing the guests, please make sure the reception follows the planned program. That's the only promise I need. Thinking I had given in, she returned with a smile. Okay, leave it to me. Just remember, switching brides was your idea. Don't you dare regret it. Understood. I'll say goodbye to my parents and then I'm leaving. It's truly regrettable to trouble the venue staff. It's unclear how far entertainment excuses can stretch. But given the circumstances, there's no other choice. It's frustrating not to wear the color dress I chose after numerous fittings. But I've completely lost the desire to stand beside my husband. I quickly gathered my things and left the dressing room. Don't worry, I'll make sure it's the best reception ever. Her laughter echoed, but I didn't look back. I didn't feel like returning home, so I went to my parents' house where the dogs are. The dogs, sensing I was upset, came to comfort me, as I was about to bury my face into their fluffy backs. The thick foundation and stiff hairspray made me want to shower. After washing off the makeup and changing into comfortable clothes, I looked at myself in the mirror. It felt like I had woken up. Maybe it's time to turn the tables? My phone rang in the distance. I knew exactly who it was. Hello? Courtney. Finally, you answered. He sounded panicked, but I remained calm. What's the matter? Isn't the reception about to end? Just come back, please. What are you talking about? You have a new bride. It has to be you. I have no intention of returning there. The staff and guests are really upset. How convenient for him to say now. Sigh. I let out a loud sigh, loud enough to be heard over the phone. Come on, I just need to apologize, right? I'm sorry for getting carried away and messing around. Then, the phone was passed to that woman, the new bride. What are you going to do about this? About what? It's all your fault. I have no idea what you're talking about. The dress is ruined, and the accessories are broken. I have no idea what you're talking about. Trying hard not to laugh, I continued the conversation. Just come back quickly. Hurry. Aren't you the bride? I don't care about being the bride anymore. What? After all your insistence on switching, what happened? The reception is proceeding as planned, right? Jessica fell silent at my words. Where are we in the program right now? It stopped. What? Since I left, the reception hadn't progressed at all. We can't make the entrance without your command. I knew this would happen. I had asked our most loyal family dog, a retired police shepherd, to escort me for the re-entry. He's smart and serious, and was supposed to be waiting at the entrance of the reception venue. Not moving an inch, waiting for my austere command. That dog is big and looks scary. I fell and tore my dress, and now I have to pay for it. She freaked out on her own and then blamed our gentle and kind dog. Despite saying that, I felt terrible for our dog who was following orders. So I hurried back to the venue. Upon my arrival, my husband, looking distressed, rushed over to me. You're a lifesaver. The venue staff looked drained and annoyed. My parents stood expressionless next to the shepherd, holding the chihuahua that had played the role of the ring dog. The stand-in bride glared at me fiercely and demanded, "Do something about this." Still bold as ever. The dog is stubborn, and your parents are useless. It's the worst. The big dog is blocking the entrance, so the guests can't even leave. My parents could have given the command to the dog, but I decided not to mention that. Then, Ryan, trying to change the subject, said, "You washed off your makeup, huh? You're cuter without it." Hearing this, the stand-in bride blurted out, "What? You said you liked girls with makeup in bed last night. So, these two were involved. Absolutely ridiculous. Just keep the promise, okay?" What promise? We agreed the reception would proceed as planned. Next is the surprise entrance with the bride's command and the shepherd dog, right? You have to do that. The smart dog was waiting at the entrance, ready to follow my command, sitting upright, his eyes sparkling. If my husband or the stand-in bride tried to approach, he would bare his teeth. He won't move on my command, even though I've played with him a few times. I looked directly at the stand-in bride and encouraged her. Go ahead, try giving the command, "Okay, let's go," in my place. Confused, she mumbled, "But even if I say it." The cold stares from the venue staff, my ineffectual husband, and she, now sober and wearing a soiled dress, seemed almost comical. She begrudgingly apologized. "Since you've ruined the reception, you'll be responsible for paying for the dress, accessories, and everything else." What? Of course. Okay, but please do something about this dog. I'm giving back the bride role. I don't want it, thanks. I made it clear. What? I promised. I said I wouldn't regret it. I don't want anything returned to me. I don't want either the bride or the husband. Courtney? Wait a minute. I shook off his attempt to grab my arm. Don't touch me, cheater. It's not like that. I was seduced and deceived. It was just a bit of fun before we got married. At that moment, the shepherd ran off. It must have been one of my parents who gave the command.
No.
Whoa. Both the husband and she were so startled that they flipped over backward. Right then, the doors to the reception venue opened, exposing their pathetic state. We're quite behind schedule. What should we do? Seeing the host's confusion, I told the still upside-down pair, "You heard the lady, bride." "What?" "Good luck then, and all the best." Feeling out of place in my bare face and casual clothes, I quickly made my exit, taking my parents and our dogs with me. Although everyone at the wedding knew the whole ridiculous saga, nobody blamed me. Still, I felt bad for locking them in, so I made apology visits with my parents. That's when I heard those two had registered their marriage quickly. We were planning to submit our marriage registration after the wedding, so it's fine. I have no regrets or lingering feelings. I'll pay off the damages quickly and have a lavish wedding. Apparently, she was enthusiastic. But their inappropriate relationship and the disgraceful behavior at the reception became widely known at their company, leading to disciplinary action and their resignations. Unemployed, the couple frequently quarreled and were eventually disowned by their relatives. As the saying goes, when the money goes, the honey goes. And their relationship's collapse seemed inevitable. Encouraged by my parents, I moved back home, taking care of our beloved dogs and enjoying peaceful days. At work, I received a lot of sympathy and affection from many people. Maybe I don't need to think about marriage for a while. I prefer being makeup-free. Like incompatible makeup can irritate my skin, forcing things can trouble my heart. I'll stay natural. Just when I thought that, I was invited to a barbecue by a neighbor who walks the same route, and asked for my contact information, and a man I met at a dog adoption event asked me out. Suddenly, I sensed potential new beginnings. Everyone loves dogs, so we get along well, surrounded by comfortable people. Choosing just one person seems impossible. I'll take my time and not rush, maintaining my pace. Yes, if I were to marry, someone who can catch even a jumping dog would be the top criterion.
A penniless nobody who's no use is grounds for divorce. Haha.
Leaving the divorce papers behind as he exits, John walks away. On my hospital bed, I stare at the divorce papers, dumbfounded. I had my suspicions for a while, it's true. But to think he was really having an affair, and he's leaving me because I can't earn money while hospitalized and useless after getting her pregnant?
Mom?
Startled by my dear son's voice, I look up to see Ethan and my father standing there. My father frowns at what I'm holding.
What are you going to do?
That's decided. Pushing myself a bit to get discharged early, I head to the bank where John is. My father, who drove me there, says,
"Hang in there,"
and drops me off in front of the bank before driving away. As I enter the bank, John, noticing me, frowns. By chance, there are no other customers in front of John. I walk straight up to him. I'm closing all the accounts of our employees.
What?
Let's see if I can make him realize whom he's angered. Opposite to John's pale face, I smirk. I am Ivy, a 32-year-old mother and a company executive. I have a 7-year-old son named Ethan and a husband named John. John and I met at a mixer held by a mutual friend during our college years. At that time, we weren't particularly interested in each other and just exchanged contact information.
Oh, weren't you Ivy at the mixer?
John. The following year, by chance, I visited the bank where he worked and we reconnected. This led us to start communicating regularly and eventually dating. We got married after I became pregnant with Ethan. John is known for his diligent and meticulous work. Because of this, our friends often envied us. I too felt fortunate to be married to him.
Mom, why does this happen?
Wait a moment, dear. I don't know either, so I'll look it up now.
Okay.
Ethan, perhaps taking after John, is studious and curious. Every day is filled with,
What's this?
and,
Why?
which keeps me on my toes with learning. Surprisingly, Ethan admires not John, but my father. My mother passed away due to illness, and my father raised me single-handedly despite his busy schedule.
Sorry, I really don't get along with your dad.
Ah, well, but don't say that to him directly. He's quite sensitive about it.
As if I would.
My father is kind, but his imposing appearance can be quite intimidating. John is also uncomfortable around my father's daunting exterior. Aware of this, my father tries not to be overly intrusive. Thus, our life was peaceful at first, a smooth sailing existence. However, that changed abruptly after we got married.
Hey, where did you put my phone?
Don't talk like that. Isn't it still on the charger? John, grumpy first thing in the morning, would inquire. Indeed, his phone was still on the charger from the night before. His response, a dismissive "tch," would frustrate me even more. John changed after we got married. Always.
I'm an elite banker. You live a comfortable life because of me.
He would say things like that. Yet John doesn't contribute financially to the household. Despite using his salary solely for himself, he acts as if he's the breadwinner. In reality, I support our family's finances. I cover all utility and grocery expenses.
Hey, what's with these new clothes?
They're for Ethan. He outgrew his old ones.
Don't splurge with my money.
I paid with my salary. I don't even have access to your bank account. Despite this, if I take Ethan out for a meal or buy new clothes, John immediately complains. It seems he can't stand the thought of us indulging in even the smallest luxuries. Meanwhile, my father is willing to spare no expense for us.
The apartment is too cramped, isn't it? That's why I bought the condo John wanted. It allows me to be close without living together.
He said with a smile, gifting us the top floor of the condo. He lives on a different floor in the same building to be available when needed.
Mom, can I go to Grandpa's?
Sure, but don't stay too late just because it's the same building. Come back before it gets dark.
Okay.
It might be natural for Ethan to be closer to his grandfather rather than his father, John. Ethan spends his time with my father whenever possible.
Where's Ethan?
He's with Dad. Interestingly, John never complains to my father. And it seems he tries not to say much about Ethan either, fearing that it might get back to my father through Ethan. He only acts tough with me. Indeed, I would keep quiet not to bother my father. Well, if it's just complaints, I could ignore them. That's how I lightly thought of it. Because of this attitude, John does not participate in parenting at all.
I've been called out by Amy, so I'll be stepping out.
Again? The one stealing John's time from parenting is his childhood friend, Amy. I dislike her, to put it mildly. John and I are like siblings, so please don't get the wrong idea. She says this every time we meet, yet she always tries to assert her closeness with John by saying things like, John used to be like this in the past, which is annoying. To make matters worse, John's mother adores Amy. Why didn't John choose Amy instead of such a woman? It would have been better if he had married Amy. Whenever I'm summoned to my in-laws, she makes sure to say things like that within my hearing. Although my father-in-law scolds her for it, she doesn't seem to care. Amy claims to be naturally naive. I'm just naturally naive, so I might inadvertently lean on John. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, you know. It would be somewhat forgivable if she were much younger. However, she's 28, old enough to know better. The reason the two never got together is because of my father-in-law.
I would never accept such a woman as a daughter, even in law. If you insist on it, I'll divorce you.
Amy is not what anyone would call a good person. She's known for playing around with men, living an unemployed lifestyle, and always asking John to buy her things she wants. My father-in-law detests Amy and strongly opposed any relationship between them. I could never understand why my mother-in-law dotes on Amy so much.
I apologize on behalf of my wife.
You don't have to apologize, father-in-law.
John is also to blame. He doesn't defend his wife when she's insulted, and instead he fraternizes with that woman.
True to his words, John doesn't defend me from whatever his mother says. Sometimes he even laughs along.
Grandma, why do you say such things? If Mom hadn't met Dad, I wouldn't have been born. Does that mean you wish I didn't exist?
No, that's not what I meant at all. Ethan always stands up for me. Though he may not understand how children are conceived, he knows that it takes both parents to have a child. Since my mother-in-law adores her grandson, Ethan, she tries not to say such things in front of him. It seems John and she are alike in this regard, making me realize how parents and children can be similar.
I have plans to drink with Amy tonight, so I'll be home late.
Oh, is that so? Gradually, I start to wonder if we really need John in our lives, leading me to prepare for divorce. Ethan, sensing something, offers his help.
If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know,
he said, showing his concern for me. Just then, I was summoned by my mother-in-law. I didn't want to go, but she would call incessantly, affecting my work if I didn't comply. Your father isn't here right now, and we have no one to carry heavy things. So, could you buy some oil and bring it over? It seems my father-in-law is away on a business trip. I thought to myself that they could have just ordered online, but voicing that would clearly cause a commotion. Carrying heavy items after work left me exhausted. As I headed to the apartment in a daze, my body was thrown by a car. It seemed a car that ran a red light had crashed into me.
The car that hit you fled the scene, and we are currently investigating.
I was informed of this while lying in a hospital bed. For now, I left Ethan in my father's care as I would be hospitalized for a while. Having fractured my arm, I couldn't do much work. Worried about this, my father scolded me, saying,
Worry about your own health first.
Ethan and my father, along with my father-in-law who returned home upon hearing the news, visited me frequently. John and my mother-in-law did not visit me at all. Well, that was within my expectations.
I'm coming in.
What? So I was surprised when John visited my hospital room.
Sign this.
He presented me with a divorce paper already signed by him.
With that arm, you can't work. Now that you can't make money, you're useless to me.
What are you talking about?
Moreover, Amy is pregnant with my child.
I was stunned by his words. Amy is pregnant with John's child?
I'm going to marry Amy, so sign this quickly.
Saying that, John turned his back on me as if he had no further use for me.
A penniless nobody whose no use is grounds for divorce, haha.
Leaving the divorce papers behind as he exits, John walks away. I stare at the divorce papers on my hospital bed, dumbfounded. I had my suspicions for a while. It's true. But to think he was really having an affair, and he's leaving me because I can't earn money while hospitalized and useless after getting her pregnant?
Mom?
Startled by my dear son's voice, I look up to see Ethan and my father standing there. My father frowns at what I'm holding.
What are you going to do?
That's decided, I answered, looking straight at my father, who nodded in agreement. Well then, let's retaliate. Pushing myself to get discharged early, I headed to the bank where John worked. My father, who drove me there, said,
Hang in there,
and dropped me off in front of the bank before driving away. As I entered the bank, John, noticing me, frowned. By chance, there were no other customers in front of John. I walked straight up to him. I'm canceling all the company accounts.
What?
John's expression said,
What are you talking about?
Ignoring the number tickets, I stood directly at the counter, and I could feel several people looking at me annoyingly. Oh, my apologies. Perhaps you didn't understand without the company name.
What are you...
I am Ivy Custard. Recently succeeded my father as the president. The company is Custard Corporation.
What?
Custard Corporation is an IT company that my father founded, now employing 1,900 people. It's quite famous in this area and within the industry due to its rapid growth in a single generation. Thus, John looked at me in disbelief, his eyes widening in shock.
That's a lie, right? You just want to get back at me.
If you think so, why not check for yourself? Upon my suggestion, John immediately began to verify the information. After all, my maiden name Custard is uncommon, which is why my father chose to incorporate it into the company name. While John was busy confirming, I scanned the surrounding area. Having mentioned the company name, bystanders were now paying attention to us.
Oh, no way, is it true?
It seemed he had confirmed the facts. John looked up at me warily.
You're really from that Custard Corporation?
Let's make him realize whose daughter he's anchored. Contrary to John's pale face, I smirked confidently. So, please proceed with the cancellation quickly.
Wait, we can't just... If you cancel all those accounts at once...
By the way, my father is quite angry about this situation too. Pack your things and leave the apartment immediately.
Huh? Why do I have to be kicked out?
Apparently, he had forgotten that my father purchased the apartment, and it was under my father's name. Otherwise, why would he have dared to bring Amy into our home during my hospitalization? Forgot? That apartment was bought by my father, the former president. You haven't contributed a single cent towards it, and you haven't been providing for the household expenses at all. Instead, you've been supporting your mistress, Amy, with everything. In fact, we've been living on my salary alone. Whose earnings do you think you've been living off?
That's...
And now because she's pregnant, you expect me to hand over the apartment to you and your mistress? How much more do you intend to insult me? I deliberately raised my voice so those around us could hear. John naturally became anxious. After all, he is known to be a diligent man. The idea of him not contributing financially at home and having an affair with a childhood friend would tarnish his reputation. The looks from those around us turned cold.
Is what I just heard true?
The one who approached me was the branch manager of the bank. It turned out he had been listening to our conversation for a while.
It seems we need to have a detailed discussion. I'm very sorry for the behavior of our bank employee.
The branch manager apologized to me. Then I was escorted to a private room where I, John, and the branch manager discussed further.
I apologize for the inconvenience caused.
The branch manager sighed deeply and apologized again, forcibly making John apologize as well.
I understand how you feel. It's natural not to want to entrust your finances to a bank that employed such a person. If you decide to proceed with the cancellation, we will arrange it.
I am no longer his wife. However, I will reconsider the cancellation under one condition. Hearing this, both men looked up hopefully, though for John the condition will be his worst nightmare. If he agreed to dismiss John Abbott from his position, I am willing to continue our contract with this bank.
What? That is, of course, something we were already considering. It was going to be dismissed regardless.
It seemed the branch manager had already intended to let John go. John's face turned from confusion to flushed anger, but before he could speak...
Excuse me, Mrs. Custer's father has arrived.
Another bank employee approached us. I asked the branch manager to let my father in, thwarting any response John might have had, leaving him to silently close his mouth in dissatisfaction.
Why am I involved in this?
What? Mom? Sorry for making you wait.
My father entered, gripping my mother-in-law's arm firmly. Seeing me, the mother-in-law glared at me sharply.
This is your doing. What do you think you're doing? Even if it's by marriage, I'm still his mother. You'll never be forgiven for this.
Silence.
As my mother-in-law began to rant, my father's already intimidating face grew even scarier as he shouted her down. This caused not just the mother-in-law, but also John to let out a short scream and fall silent.
I know about the harassment you've subjected my daughter to, calling her for trivial tasks, making her buy and carry heavy items. Despite that, you never thanked her, and instead you made it known that you preferred your son's mistress Amy over my daughter. And John, far from defending her, you laughed. What does it mean when a child has to stand up for her?
My father's voice of anger echoed through the bank. John tried to intervene, but he was silenced by my father's glare.
And I'm aware that Amy was the one who hit Ivy. She's already been arrested by the police.
Could it be that Amy would do such a thing?
Acting surprised, are you? You were the mastermind.
With another shout from my father, the mother-in-law was taken aback, while John seemed frozen in shock, having apparently been unaware.
You and your son are the lowest. Ivy, let's go.
Yes. Prompted by my father, we started to leave. The branch manager followed us, repeatedly apologizing. Thinking that it might be alright to continue our contract with this bank manager, I heard John and the mother-in-law arguing loudly behind us. They seemed to be blaming each other, their voices carried outside, where bystanders and bank employees whispered,
"So what we heard was true."
"Just as planned."
Yes, they reacted just as we expected, which helped.
Following our plan, we left the bank laughing triumphantly. John was successfully fired, and thanks to the thorough investigation by the police, Amy was given a custodial sentence. The mother-in-law was also taken by the police after it was discovered she had incited Amy to hit and run in an attempt to eliminate me, on top of calling me out.
Mom, Grandpa, welcome back.
"We're home. Thank you for looking after Ethan, father-in-law."
No problem. Seems you've settled everything.
After confronting John at the bank, I went to pick up Ethan from my father-in-law, who had been a great help. He found evidence that the mother-in-law had been conspiring with Amy and submitted it to the police. Thanking him for everything, he smiled and said,
You did well.
My life became busier than ever as I took on more responsibilities as the new president of the company. My father also started a new company.
I've always wanted to start a new company.
He was excited to push the role of president onto me, partly to prove John wrong. With both of us busy, my father-in-law took care of Ethan. It turned out that the mother-in-law's affair with her boss was the reason for the forced business trip. He took early retirement and moved into an empty apartment in our building.
I'm studying remote work now. I'm planning to have him work for the new company once he's ready. He seems very capable.
After this ordeal, the fathers seemed to get along well, often visiting each other to share drinks and stories. As for John, he returned to an empty family home, having been driven out by his own actions. Unable to find re-employment in the banking sector due to the rumors my father and I had spread, John was left in a situation where no one was willing to hire him. Consequently, he was forced to pay alimony to me through loans. Now his days are consumed by relentless part-time work as he tries to make ends meet, having come to us pleading but being unanimously ignored by our family. Once rumored to have a promising career ahead with prospects of becoming a branch manager, John's fall from grace was steep.
When I grow up, I want to be like Grandpa.
This ordeal has deepened Ethan's admiration for my father, viewing him as a hero who rescued us from the malicious actions of John and my mother-in-law.
Then, will you take over for Grandpa someday?
Yes. My father was overjoyed at Ethan's willingness to carry on his legacy, spurring me on to work even harder, not to be outdone by him. Eventually, both my company and my father's business found their footing and stabilized.
Oh, Mom, welcome back. Oh, you're home. Well done today.
Returning home exhausted, I was greeted by my father-in-law, who had prepared dinner.
I helped too today.
Is that so? That's great, Ethan. I'm looking forward to dinner. Praising Ethan for his efforts brought smiles all around, and my father returned home shortly after. The four of us enjoyed dinner together, a stark contrast to the disarray in John's life. John's situation worsened as he accumulated more debt and eventually became involved with loan sharks, with rumors suggesting a dire end for him. His family home was sold to repay his debts, leaving his mother with nowhere to go but under a bridge, as spotted by acquaintances.
By the way, I received an apology letter from Amy's parents. They're good people and they'd like you to read it.
If you say so, I will. According to the letter from Amy's parents, she gave birth in prison. They've taken the child into the care and moved far away to ensure Amy wouldn't rely on them after her release, expressing deep apologies to me. It was clear that Amy's parents were good people, and I hoped the child would grow up to be like them, not their parents. Amy, now with nowhere to return to, was left to confront her actions in solitude. Years later, our family no longer suffers from John's presence, and Ethan barely remembers him, effectively erasing him from our lives.
I've decided to take over Grandpa's company.
If that's your decision, I won't oppose it. Ethan chose to inherit my father's toy company, where he's valued for his innovative ideas.
Maybe it's time to consider handing the company over to Ethan sooner than expected.
With a plan for retirement in the countryside, my father looked forward to a peaceful life, while I sought a successor to teach and potentially retire early myself. Contemplating this new path, I continued to dedicate myself to my role as president, envisioning a future where I too could embark on a new journey.
Nicole, open up, I shouted, pounding on the door that wouldn't budge, as if something was placed outside. Then, I heard Nicole's chuckling from the other side of the door. That's what you get punished for trying to play mom with me. Nicole seemed to have walked away. I remember telling Daniel on the phone this morning that she was going for a 3-night, 4-day trip. Daniel was also away on a rare business trip and wouldn't return for another 4 days. Can't be helped. I called someone with the wearable watch I had on my wrist. While stroking my belly, which had grown significantly in my 9th month of pregnancy, I devised a plan. Enough is enough. Be prepared. 4 days later, Nicole returned home, humming a tune. However, she quickly noticed the stench of decay filling the house and rushed to the sauna, opening the door with force. What? I tapped Nicole on the shoulder, who let out a ridiculously surprised voice. Well, time to correct that rotten attitude. My name is Rachel Morris, a 35-year-old office worker. I continued working even after discovering my pregnancy, but I recently took maternity leave in my 9th month. I am currently enjoying some brief free time. I met my husband, Daniel, 4 years ago, and we got married last year. We just celebrated our first wedding anniversary a month ago, so we're newlyweds. Daniel is 45, 10 years my senior. He's a very kind man who always puts me first. Daniel has a daughter from his previous marriage, Nicole. In fact, Daniel is divorced, and Nicole is his child with his ex-wife. Considering my age, I wanted to get married as soon as possible, but to his adult daughter, the idea of her father remarrying was probably awkward. Nicole, who was very friendly, seemed happy to have me as a big sister. But we decided not to marry while she was still a student, and instead deepened our relationship by going out on dates 2 to 3 times a week. We got married after she started working and moved out. 3 months after our marriage, I found out I was pregnant, and Daniel and I were enveloped in happiness. However, Nicole became cold after learning about my pregnancy and started to look unhappy whenever we met. Maybe she disliked the idea of having a much younger sibling. Although she said she was happy to have a big sister, it was a bit sad, but I couldn't help it. I tried to endure it, telling myself that, but soon I couldn't keep saying that anymore. I'm home. I quit my job, so. One day, suddenly, movers arrived at our house with Nicole. Without even glancing at me, stunned, Nicole cleared out the room we had prepared for the baby and moved her things in. Wait, what do you mean? That's right, I quit my job, so I have no money. I've decided to move back in from today. I was speechless at her selfish behavior. I needed to contact Daniel right away. As I thought that and reached for my smartphone, Nicole quickly snatched it from my hand. No telling Dad, okay? I'll explain to him. Nicole said this and called Daniel herself. Then, she began an astonishing explanation to Daniel, who answered the phone. You know, I was bullied at work, and Rachel said it'd be okay if I quit and came back here. So I made a bold move and moved back. Sorry for intruding on your newlywed life. I'll try to find a new job and place as soon as possible, so I won't be a bother. After explaining this, Nicole hung up and turned a very mean look towards me. I was convinced by her expression that Nicole was lying. I wonder if Daniel believed her. I felt anxious about our future life. When Daniel came home, he asked me about Nicole's call from the afternoon in the bedroom. I complained that not only had I never discussed work with Nicole, but I was also very sad that she took over the baby's room that we had prepared. Daniel listened to me till the end and said that he would ask Nicole to find a place and move out as soon as possible, and if she didn't, we would consider moving. Thanks to that, I felt a little better, but from the next day, I had to worry about Nicole's behavior. "Rachel, isn't the food ready yet?" We agreed that we'd prepare meals for the family for breakfast and dinner, but everyone's on their own for lunch, right? When we ended up living together by force, Daniel and I only ate meals together in the morning and evening. We had decided to handle lunch individually. There were times when my belly was so swollen that moving was difficult, and sometimes I had to eat out due to health checkups. At that time, Nicole agreed with a smile, saying, "Understood." However, it seems that her response was just an act of playing the good daughter in front of Daniel. "If you're at home, you should cook." "I'm busy." "Look, you haven't even finished folding the laundry, and the toilet isn't clean." "What are you doing at home all the time?" "Being pregnant isn't a sickness, so do your part properly." "It takes me time to move around because my belly is heavy." "Since you're always at home, you could help out too." "Huh? I told you I'm busy, didn't I?" "You're always at home and free, aren't you? After all, you're the housewife of this house." "I don't have any obligation to do these things." After saying that, Nicole kicked the laundry I had just folded. Smirking down at me, she looked just like a mean stepmother. "Why are you doing this? Have I done something to be disliked this much? Didn't you realize? How can I like someone who stole my father from my mother and selfishly made a baby? Just get out. My mom can't come back because of you." Upon hearing these words, I realized that Nicole's drastic change in attitude was probably due to her mother, Tiffany, Daniel's ex-wife. The words Nicole used were as if to accuse me of having an affair with Daniel and stealing him from Tiffany. I instantly denied it, saying, "That's not true." But Nicole wouldn't listen. And then, a few days later, Nicole took a surprising action. "I'm stepping out for a bit." Nicole, unusually, said this and left. I watched her go and then got on with the household chores. After finishing the cleaning and laundry, just as I was about to relax, I heard the front door open. I wondered if Nicole had returned home early. With that thought, I turned my gaze toward the living room door. What? I had assumed it would be only Nicole, but the person who entered from the living room door wasn't just her. The woman was clearly around my age, or rather, older. She was dressed youthfully, but she seemed to be around the same age as Daniel. Observing her resemblance to Nicole, I had a bad feeling and stood up from my chair. "Excuse me, are you a relative of Daniel's?" I asked, trying to keep my composure, to which Nicole and the woman both directed a vulgar smile at me. Then the woman approached me and looked down triumphantly. "Hello, homewrecker. My name is Tiffany Reed. I'm Nicole's real mother and the woman loved by Daniel." Her way of speaking sent a chill down my spine. Enjoying my reaction, Tiffany continued to talk to me. "Well, now, I've lent him to you for the time being. Since you've taken his seed, maybe it's time for you to disappear?" Daniel must have reflected on his actions by now. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm coming back to this house, so you need to leave." Tempting Daniel while he was just sulking, you really thought it through. But unfortunately, I'm the only one Daniel loves. I had heard from Daniel that Tiffany Reed had cheated and left the house. And I met Daniel about 3 years after their divorce. There's no reason for someone who just returned to insult me as a homewrecker. That's the situation. Rachel, when can you leave? Tomorrow? I brought a divorce form for you. Saying this, Nicole placed the divorce form in front of me and said, I'm going to stay at Mom's tonight. Then left the house. I could only stare blankly at the two of them. Months passed, and Nicole was quiet. I was cautious but didn't receive any harassment. Slowly, I started to return to normal life, letting my guard down. But that was a mistake. One holiday, Nicole approached me with an unusual smile. Rachel, the home sauna is acting up. Can you come for a second? Nicole took my hand, and I followed her as she asked. But there was nothing wrong with the home sauna. As I was checking inside, puzzled, the door suddenly closed. Nicole, open this. I shouted while pounding on the unyielding door that seemed blocked from outside. Then, I heard Nicole's chuckling from the other side. That's what you get punished for trying to play mom with me. Nicole then seemed to just go away. I think I remember telling Daniel over the phone this morning that she was going on a 3-night, 4-day trip. Daniel was also on a rare business trip and wouldn't return for another 4 days. Can't be helped. I called someone using the wearable watch on my arm. While stroking my belly, now significantly larger in my 9th month of pregnancy, I devised a plan. Enough is enough. Be prepared. 4 days later, Nicole returned home humming a tune. However, she immediately noticed the foul smell filling the house and rushed to the sauna, opening the door forcefully. What? I tapped the shoulder of Nicole, who let out a ridiculous voice. Time to correct that rotten attitude. You were alive. Yes, thanks to you. Nicole glared at me, her face turning red. To her, I said, Nicole, what were you going to do if I had something happen to me after being in the sauna for 4 days? Huh? You wouldn't die in just 4 days. Well, I don't know about the baby though. That's right, Daniel. What? Dad. As I called out to the living room, Daniel appeared from around the corner. Approaching with a face like an angry deity, he wasn't mad at me, but he looked very scary. Dad. Why are you here? What about work? I came back as soon as Rachel contacted me. The business trip was supposed to be with 4 people, so I asked to leave early. Rachel, don't do something that'll affect Dad's career. You're the one who caused this situation. Daniel's shout echoed in the room, and Nicole visibly jumped. Her face turned pale as she looked up at Daniel, close to tears. Because of the sensitive time of the divorce, I hadn't told you the reason. Never thought it would lead to this. I'm ashamed to have raised a person who would endanger a beloved wife and unborn child. Dad? Rachel has been patient, but I've reached my limit. Tiffany cheated with my boss. That's why we divorced. What? Nicole looked at me and Daniel in disbelief, hearing this for the first time. Sighing, Daniel responded. I met Rachel years after the divorce. It's impossible for her to be the reason for our divorce. But Mom. Let me guess, she was dumped by her boyfriend and now wants to be taken care of, right? Daniel said this decisively and made a phone call. Despite his angry expression, he spoke with a very gentle voice on the phone. Ah, it's been a while. Are you well? I heard from Nicole. I've come to my senses too. I'd like to talk about the future. Can you come over to the house now? A high-pitched voice could be heard from the other end of the line. I immediately realized who he was calling. About 5 minutes later, Tiffany Reed, carrying a lot of luggage, entered our house with an air of ownership. From the way she entered without ringing the bell, it seemed she had been given a spare key by Nicole. Long time no see, Daniel. Finally realized your mistake? Oh, Rachel, you're still here? Please leave quickly. We're going to live as a family without any outsiders from now on. Unaware of the angry-faced Daniel and the visibly shrunken Nicole, Tiffany cheerfully said this to me. I returned her with a smile and looked at Daniel. Tiffany, following my gaze, dropped her luggage on the floor in shock upon seeing Daniel. You tricked me. There's no need to show respect to a woman who taught our daughter a false reason for our divorce and is pressuring my wife to divorce. You only love me, right? You got dumped again? You never last long with anyone. What? Tiffany was lost for words, her face turning red at Daniel's remark. In fact, Daniel had always been aware of Tiffany's whereabouts. It wasn't that he had hired a detective. Tiffany's parents regularly provided him with information, understanding that her actions were erratic and not wanting to disrupt Daniel's remarriage or Nicole's development. From the beginning of their divorce, they had been sharing information about Tiffany with Daniel. Tiffany apparently had a pattern of quickly moving in with men she caught and then moving on to the next man's house when they broke up. Daniel seemed reluctant to let Nicole meet Tiffany, but since Nicole loved her mother, he respected Nicole's wishes until she learned the truth. Nicole, you seem to have followed in your mother's footsteps, getting involved with a superior at work. How do you know that? The company you entered is part of our group. A little investigation reveals everything. Nicole was speechless, her face turning pale. I was surprised by this new information, but even more shocking revelations were to come. By the way, you two seem to have similar tastes in men. What do you mean? Daniel showed Tiffany his phone. Tiffany's face contorted with rage, and she stormed over to Nicole and slapped her. It was you who stole my boyfriend. What? What do you mean? Don't play dumb. Because of you, he lost his job, ran out of money, and I had to leave my house. That man was your boyfriend? But, Mom, you said you were living alone and still loved Dad. Daniel has money, so I just used him as a temporary shelter. And I was being nice to you for that. Useless girl. That's a lie. It can't be. The situation was completely unexpected, and I was speechless. The house became a chaotic mess with an enraged Tiffany and a crying Nicole. Just then, the doorbell rang. Ah, they're here. Sorry, Rachel, could you answer it? Of course. I followed Daniel's request and opened the door to find an elderly couple. They introduced themselves as Tiffany's parents and greeted me. I quickly greeted back and led them to where Tiffany and Nicole were in front of the sauna room. Tiffany, what are you doing? We've reached our limit. Mom, why are you and Dad here? Daniel contacted us. Tiffany's mother said this and grabbed Tiffany's arm tightly. Tiffany's father slapped her as she tried to pull away. He looked down at a stunned Tiffany with a cold gaze. We're taking you to a relative's house. Don't even think about coming back here. No, not that house. No, I refuse. You don't have the right to refuse. No. Tiffany's scream echoed through the house. Her father grabbed her arm and then dragged Tiffany out. The house, quiet after the storm, was filled only with Nicole's sobbing. Dad. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'll be good from now on. Aren't you apologizing to the wrong person? What? Nicole froze at Daniel's words, seemingly not understanding the gravity of the situation. I stopped Daniel, who seemed ready to yell again, and turned to Nicole with a smile. Seeing my smile, Nicole appeared slightly relieved. but I was about to shatter that relief by speaking up. This house has been sold, so we're moving out. You need to leave within 3 days too. What? What do you mean? Exactly what I said. There's no way I can leave within 3 days. Nicole sent a pleading look to Daniel for help. However, Daniel remained silent. It seemed she finally realized that I was serious. She turned pale and clung to me desperately. Hey, I'm sorry. I'll apologize, so let me stay in the new house. Just until I find a place. I'll even take care of the baby that's coming. I'd rather die than live with someone who put me and my unborn child in danger and hasn't even apologized until now. Take care of the baby? That's a joke. But how could you? Nicole collapsed onto the floor and started crying. Despite looking down at her, I didn't feel even a shred of pity. Her actions were too unforgivable. I'm thoroughly disappointed in you. I thought you were more considerate of others. What would have happened if I hadn't returned? You would have had to carry an unforgivable sin for life. Rachel is kind enough not to report you to the police. You should be grateful for that and spend your life reflecting on your actions. Rachel. Her eyes briefly lit up with hope, probably thinking her tears would sway me. However, my decision not to report her to the police was not out of consideration for her. I wanted her to understand that, so I spoke up. It's not out of sympathy or anything. I just didn't want my child to be born with a criminal sibling. Otherwise, I would have reported you immediately. I don't even want to see your face right now. After saying this in one breath, Nicole burst into tears. I felt nothing for those tears and squatted in front of her to continue speaking. You know, I'm sure you'll get married and possibly have children in the future. Only then will you truly realize the horror of what you've done. I'm looking forward to it. Huh. I must have been smiling, which only increased her fear. Nicole turned from pale to ghostly white and trembled. Well, we're going back to our new home. We probably won't see each other again, but take care. If you're not out in 3 days, I've asked a company to dispose of everything inside. We left Nicole there and returned to our new home. Afterward, Nicole packed only what she needed and was forcibly evicted when the deadline arrived. Rumors of her affair with her boss and resignation had spread in the local area, leaving her friendless. Nicole was living in an internet cafe, working day jobs. Occasionally, calls from Nicole appeared on Daniel's phone, but he never called back, eventually saying he'd change his number. Despite hiding the reason for the divorce, Daniel was shockingly rejected by his daughter's betrayal. Tiffany Reed was taken by her parents to work as a live-in worker on a remote island's ranch, tirelessly working from dawn to dusk, with no phone to escape. Tiffany's parents planned to move to the island after retirement, marrying her off to the rancher's son and never letting her leave the island. While I felt a bit sorry for them, I wanted them to atone for hurting my loved ones. Daniel was initially down, but gradually regained his spirits upon learning our baby was a boy. Every day, while putting his ear to the belly, he says, "It's Daddy." Which will it be, baseball or football? Basketball and volleyball are also good options. Speaking like this, it's very heartwarming. Recently, he even got a promotion and a significant pay raise. When I see him determined to work hard and earn well so as not to deprive the child of anything, his eyes shining with resolve, I feel that despite the hardships we've faced this time, I am truly glad to have married this person. As for me, I was actually in labor, balancing the excitement of meeting our baby and the fear of unknown pain. I gave Daniel instructions while waiting for the taxi, distracting myself with thoughts of the baby's face. The baby's name wasn't decided yet, but I had a feeling it would come to us as soon as we saw the face. The taxi's here. Can you walk? Yes, I'll try. I stood up, holding my belly. This was the real challenge. We got into the taxi during a lull in the contractions, watching the passing scenery. I'll be right beside you. Hang in there. Daniel. Thank you. Feeling his hand in mine, I felt an incredible sense of security and expressed my deepest gratitude. I knew that whatever happened in the future, we could face it together. I felt this premonition of happiness as I went into labor.
I divorced my husband. The reason was something unexpected. He had an affair with our son's wife. However, I felt lighter after the divorce. That's because my husband had a habit of gambling and was reckless with money. I found out later that he married me for my money. Originally, my entire family worked in the medical field, and I'm no exception. But when we got married, my husband quit his job. And when our son got injured and was hospitalized, my husband... My name is Susan Greenfield. Today marks 1 year since my son passed away. I'm currently looking through my son's childhood albums, lost in memories. This story is about my time with my deceased son and my ex-husband. I'm currently 54 years old, working as an emergency medical technician at a university hospital. Despite the high salary, my job comes with very few days off. It seems the shortage of medical staff is far from being resolved. My ex-husband, John, is 4 years older than me. Even though we are divorced now, meeting him was undoubtedly the worst part of my life. I met John at a matchmaking party since I was really busy with work at the time. John, muscular and buff, was working as a delivery driver at the time. However, John's attitude changed drastically after we got married. He quit his job as soon as we got married and started to live off my money.
Hey, Susan, give me some money.
What, again? I wonder how many times this has happened, but John's gaze was intimidating and I couldn't stand up to him.
Hurry up and give it to me. Don't worry, I'll pay you back 10 times more.
Saying that, my husband probably left the house to go gambling. As soon as he returned, he opened the front door with a loud noise.
Damn it! That slot machine must have been rigged.
I cautiously spoke to my visibly irritated husband. Did you lose again? Then my husband glared at me and said this.
Isn't it obvious? I lost all the $300 you gave me.
Ever since we got married, I've been living as if I'm walking on eggshells every day. He hasn't been physically abusive, but his harsh tone of voice is enough to instill fear. I've thought about divorce countless times, but I didn't want to worry my son, who had just become a doctor. My son, David, is a 27-year-old intern this year. Coming from a family entirely in the medical field, it seems he has dreamt of being a doctor since he was young. He went to a 6-year college and is now working hard every day at a general hospital. Recently, it seems my son has found someone he could call his fiancée. At least until the wedding is over, I'll try to hold on. With that thought, I go through each day planning to divorce John someday. But my husband's actions and words only escalated. I have a night shift today, so I'm leaving now. Then my husband approached me in his pajamas. What? Without saying anything, my husband just stared at me, so I asked.
You haven't finished the laundry yet, have you? Also, the bath hasn't been cleaned.
My husband coldly said that to me. What he said was almost enough to make me faint. I work as a doctor and also take care of the household chores. In contrast, my husband is unemployed. He doesn't help around the house at all. Moreover, it infuriated me that he seemed to think that household chores were solely my responsibility. I wish you would do that yourself. I accidentally voiced the thoughts I had been keeping to myself. Then my husband said,
Huh? You know you can go to work with peace of mind because I'm here, right? Show some gratitude.
His retort, which could be seen as a snapback, left me more astounded than angry. I need to go now. You should just take care of it. Also, I won't be coming back tonight because of my night shift. As I was about to leave the house, he called out to me again.
Then at least leave me some money for my meals.
Saying that, my husband stretched his hand out to me. I really didn't have any more time. I had so many things I wanted to say back to him, but knowing that arguing back at this point was pointless, I handed him some money from my wallet. Then, without waiting for a reply, I left the house. The problem occurred when I was on night duty. A nurse came to me. "Dr. Greenfield, please come to the nurse station urgently." It seemed to be something serious. Perhaps a patient's condition has suddenly worsened. I rushed over immediately. As soon as I arrived at the station, another nurse told me to take a phone call. I took the receiver and said, "Hello, this is Greenfield." Then I heard a doctor, who was from another hospital, speak on the other end of the phone.
Is this Susan Greenfield? I'm calling from the hospital where your son David works. The thing is, your son David has...
Hearing the details, I felt as though my soul had left my body. The nurse looked at me with a concerned expression as I stood there, stunned, holding the receiver. "I understand. I'll come by after my shift ends tomorrow." I hung up the phone, but my voice lacked strength. "My son, David is paralyzed from the waist down." After receiving the call from the doctor, it seems my son tried to catch a patient who was about to fall but lost his balance and fell down the stairs in the process. He hit his back hard and fell head first. Losing consciousness, he ended up completely paralyzed from the waist down. After my night shift, I rushed to the hospital where my son works. I announced my name at the reception and hurried to my son's room. On the way, I ran into my husband. "Oh, what are you doing here?"
Same as you. I came after the hospital called.
We exchanged only those words and entered the room. There, beside my bedridden son, was a woman.
"And who might you be?"
The woman turned around when my husband spoke to her. She was the beautiful, long-haired fiancée of my son, Mary Wilson. I recognized her immediately from the photos my son had emailed me. She is 26 years old, a year younger than my son.
"Hello, I am Mary Wilson, David's fiancée."
She greeted us politely, and I greeted her back in response. Then I approached my son. He was still unconscious, connected to a ventilator. A ventilator? As I looked at my son, puzzled, the doctor entered the room. My son is paralyzed from the waist down. Why does he need a ventilator? Isn't he just unconscious?" I asked the doctor, feeling anxious. My son was supposed to have hurt his back, which would only affect his lower body. I thought he would wake up soon. The doctor then began to explain.
Since then, we found that his lungs and brain were also damaged. It seems he hit his head really hard while falling down the stairs.
Upon hearing those words, we all got quiet. As a surgeon, I didn't know what to say. The surgery seemed to have been successful, but his condition was still critical. We were also told that the ICU was full, so he had been moved to a general ward. For a month, I visited my son's room almost every day. At first, I ran into his fiancée, Mary Wilson, a few times, but gradually I saw less and less of her. At the same time, I saw my husband less and less at home, but with my busy job, I couldn't afford to worry about such things. Yet, as if fate wanted to rub it in my face, I was shocked to see Mary Wilson and my husband holding hands and entering an inn together. Why are those two together, holding hands? The inn wasn't far from our house. It was on my way to work and well known in the area. I managed to calm my confused mind and asked my husband when I saw him. "Hey, the other day I saw you and Mary Wilson entering an inn together. What was that about?" My husband looked back at me, surprised at first, then scratched his head.
"Damn it. That's why I said we should have gone to a different inn."
He muttered that, and sighed deeply. Are you by any chance having an affair with Mary Wilson? I asked hesitantly, and my husband answered nonchalantly.
Yeah, that's right. How could I ignore such a beauty like her? David will be bedridden forever, and Mary said the same.
I felt as if I had been hit in the back of the head with a hammer. The same thing?
I don't know if she's aware of her own beauty, but she says she can't forgive being ignored for so long. Women are scary, you know, and apparently there are no exceptions, even for illness.
I was devastated to learn the true nature of my son's fiancée. Although she seemed polite at first, I never imagined her inner self to be so tumultuous. Feeling the injustice done to my son made me uncontrollably verbalize my anger towards the two of them. Enough. Let's get a divorce. When I said that, my husband agreed without hesitation. From his attitude, I realized he had lost interest in me a long time ago. This realization brought even more anger and sadness. However, my husband continued speaking without giving me a moment to dwell on those feelings.
You can claim property division if you want, but don't expect much. After all, I'm unemployed. I married you because I knew you were earning a high income.
Is it okay to say whatever he wants just because we're getting divorced? Already stretched thin emotionally, his cold words kept coming, making it clear he didn't care about me or even our son. You're not even worth the effort of claiming property division, I retorted, trying to sound tough. But it seemed not to affect him at all. He just smirked and said,
That's a relief.
While my son was fighting for his life, my husband and my son's wife indulged in their affair. No wonder I stopped seeing Mary Wilson around. To think that this was what was happening? Hearing this from my husband made me resolve to be the one true ally my son had. Yet contrary to my wishes, my son's condition never improved. Every visit was met with the sight of my son, eyes closed, not waking up. Still, I continued to visit the hospital, hoping he would open his eyes one day. 7 years passed without my son waking up, and then one day as I was taking a taxi to the hospital, my phone rang. Hello? What? I froze, phone still to my ear. I distinctly remember it was raining that day. The sound of the rain outside couldn't reach me at that moment. Arriving at the hospital and heading to his room, I found the heart rate monitor turned off and David's face was completely white, out of color. David. As I approached, weakly muttering, one of the doctors spoke to me.
I'm sorry, but David passed away 10 minutes ago.
The call I received in the taxi was to inform me that my son had gone into cardiac arrest. CPR had been performed by the doctors while I was on my way. One of the doctors was even sweating from his forehead. Despite their best efforts, my son had gone to heaven. I had waited 7 years, hoping he would wake up one day, but my son never came back. When my son's stretcher, on his way to the morgue, passed by me, I broke down and cried for the first time. Everything after that happened so fast. I took a leave from work and began the funeral preparations, which kept me busy. On the day of the funeral, I met someone. Yes, it was my ex-husband, John.
Oh, if it isn't...
He started to speak upon seeing my face, but then stopped, apparently forgetting my name. It's Susan.
Oh, right. I remembered it started with S.
He insulted me like that as soon as we met. His behavior was as inappropriate as ever, especially at a setting like a funeral. I don't know how you found out, but you have some nerve showing up. Our son was fighting alone while you were having an affair. Seeing this man brought all my repressed bitterness to the brink of explosion, but the words that came from my ex-husband only further inflamed my anger.
I'm not really interested in the funeral. What we're here for is...
Before he could finish, a woman continued his sentence from behind. It was the very person who had an affair with my ex-husband, Mary Wilson.
We came here to claim the inheritance.
Hey, don't cut in.
It's fine. You're too slow, John.
I just stood there looking at them. It seemed that even after 7 years, Their relationship was still going strong, and they were even flirting in front of me. Enough, both of you. My words made them stop. Then,
always so noisy. Just give us the inheritance already,
was what they demanded. John's face was smirking, followed by Mary's. However, I couldn't help but laugh at their demand.
What's so funny?
To their retort, I began to reveal the whole truth. You really think everything will go your way, don't you? The world isn't as sweet as you think. I managed to say this despite my cheeks twitching from trying not to laugh too hard. Naturally, they were furious.
Huh? What are you trying to say?
About the inheritance, David's life insurance and such, it's long gone. Their eyes widened, looking at each other in disbelief.
What do you mean, gone?
You're both so greedy and vile. David was the complete opposite, a true role model doctor.
So, what are you trying to say?
Our argument attracted the attention of the funeral attendees, who were trying to deduce what was happening from our conversation. David told me before he got life insurance. If I die before Mom, I want all my savings, life insurance, everything to go to UNICEF. And that's what I did. After David passed, I donated all his inheritance to UNICEF as he wished. There's not a single cent left for you two.
What?
John's face went pale instantly. It seemed they were seriously counting on David's inheritance. Mary's complexion matched his.
John, what do? We bought a new sports car thinking the inheritance would cover it.
John responded weakly. So that was it. I finally understood their fixation on the inheritance. They were counting on it to pay off their car loan. But how did they manage to purchase it in the first place? What do you do for work now? Surprisingly, they answered honestly.
I work for a moving company.
I'm a part-timer.
I thought so. Impossible. Puzzled, I asked them another question. A sports car would cost around $20,000, right? There would be a screening process. Even if you passed that, how did you manage the payment? They looked at each other again. Then John answered.
From a shady place, they prepared the paperwork and money when I said I'd pay back in a month.
The moment I heard that, it felt as if time had briefly stopped. And then I couldn't help but feel laughter bubbling up inside me. That's hilarious. I see, yes, that makes sense. You could borrow from there.
Stop joking around. What are you laughing at? This is serious for us.
She spoke sternly to me as I laughed, but her tone didn't scare me at all. The scariest thing for them was the future waiting ahead. Even if there had been an inheritance, I wouldn't have given it to you two. How could you think there would be enough for a sports car?
Huh?
Such a large sum couldn't possibly exist at David's age. Buying a car without understanding that is just foolish. As I spoke, they looked utterly defeated, their faces a picture of dumbfounded misery. I pressed on. Abandoning your son as he hovered between life and death, prioritizing your own selfish desires? This is what you two deserve. You'll just have to do your best from here on out. After my words, they seemed to finally grasp the gravity of the situation, their mouths agape, unable to respond. The other attendees cast cold looks their way. Thus, the two were escorted out by security, and my son's funeral proceeded with those who genuinely mourned him. Has it been a year already since then? Today, on the first anniversary of my son's death, I murmured this while looking through his album. Since then, my ex-husband and my son's former fiancée have been hounded by debt collectors. In fact, debt collectors have even come to me, but after showing them the divorce papers and explaining that we were no longer related, they left quietly. The two made extravagant purchases based on their wrongful assumption of an inheritance. The consequences were naturally severe, a culmination of their past misdeeds, I suppose. I doubt I'll ever interact with those two again. If by some chance we do meet, my my first action would be to call the police, or perhaps a punch might come first. David, find good people in heaven. I whispered this to a photo of my son from his childhood. Of course, no response came. But in my heart, my son lives on forever. After finishing with the album, I resolved to live my life to the fullest, also for my son's sake.